We just had a fantastic breakfast panel here at Davos discussing the critical importance of funding for children's education in emergencies, and it was an honour to have Education Cannot Wait, one of our largest funders, and the LEGO Foundation, one of the leading private sector donors to education, in the room, and to have a lively discussion.
Really grateful to Street Child and ECW and LEGO Foundation for driving this really important conversation, particularly in the current context. I think all we can think about as we walk away from this room is the importance of us getting more of a rallying cry from the private sector, and thinking of really practical and committed ways in getting private sector up front and central in this conversation, and bringing in critical funds for children and young people globally.
Biggest difference you can make is in education. It's where you can make the longest difference, like long-term difference, impact on children. So when we sit with our board, and they ask where can we invest to make the biggest difference in society, we'll say the opposite is in education, in particular in early childhood. You can bring stimulation, you can bring play to rebuild a positive view on the world. And then it brings also confidence and support for the company and the employees. There's a really nice research that illustrates that if you really invest in social responsibility, it builds your employees' commitment not only to society but to your organization. They feel like stronger identity. So it's also an ability to display and role model that you can make a difference as an employee. We have a lot of employee volunteering programs also, but it is to also demonstrate social responsibility, that we are part of a global world, not only the place where we operate as a company.
Yeah. I want to understand, why was Education Cannot Wait created? Because the old way of doing things in conflict and crisis countries is, here are the humanitarian workers, here the development, everyone is competing, everyone is doing their own thing, no one is coordinating, and the ones who suffer are the children and the communities and their parents and the youth, because they see an international community running all over the place, right? Or even whether it's NGOs or the UN or others. So we were created, Education Cannot Wait, to, instead of having all these little dots running around doing things, have all these great organizations come together under one program, a joint program where humanitarians and development actors work in parallel, mutually reinforcing, and then deliver, and based on comparative advantage. So, Street Child is excellent on localization. So now we see how well they're doing in Uganda. Localization is one of their added value and comparative advantage. UNHCR is very good on refugees, and they have a very strong role in protection, so they can play that role. And UNICEF can play the role of training the teachers and so forth. And then of course LEGO is everywhere with us, both in terms of expertise but also as a funder. And then they're all in one program, so when private sector comes in, like LEGO has become a role model for private sector. They were the first big private sector that went in when we were still growing, and today I don't think you regret it. But you put your cards on a certain horse. Is that when private sector comes in, they put their funding into a pooled funding mechanism. That's what Education Cannot Wait is. So instead of private sector running around, can I put a little bit here, a little bit there, we go into this pool. And private sector, like LEGO, and we have a few others working with us, they become part of the governance board. So we have an executive committee and high-level steering group. So it's not just about please give us money and go home. No, you are here. We are driving this together. We are driving the speed, the evidence, the quality, the localization, because private sector become board members with decision-making power. So we operate like a secretariat, ready to facilitate for you to make the right decision, put your requirements and your demands, so you become a cool player in this pooled funding.
I think that children out of school, children out of learning is one of the great tragedies of our time, because it's so dramatically unnecessary. There are lots of hard problems in the world, lots of hard problems. People here in Davos spend time thinking about getting children in school and keeping them there, whatever the situation, is, as Street Child has demonstrated through our work, through our partnerships in places people think of as being immensely complex, Northeast Nigeria, Afghanistan, Somalia. It's possible. It's possible for $100, $150 per child. And if we don't do that, what's the alternative? That children don't become numerate, don't become literate, don't have those basic skills for a future, for a productive life, become utterly detached from possibilities of the modern world, the world that is being discussed down in the town this week. If private companies make that investment in the futures of children, who then acquire these foundational skills, they have a chance of participating in the modern economy in 20, 30, 40 years' time. If they don't, then they won't. And cycles of emergencies driven by ignorance will perpetuate, and we'll be talking about the same crises in a generation, 2 generations' time.
Now, to ensure that we don't just equip them with a school bag or a piece of paper or a pen, but rather give them a sustained, inclusive, continued quality education in a minimum of 12 years, especially for the girls. It requires, we're speaking here, millions, billions of dollars. That's what we are talking about. We're not speaking $1,000 or $1 million, and that's why we need private sector. There is not a single ODA government that is going to be able to deliver that funding to us. And if we don't reach the 222 million children and youth, if we don't invest in them today, what is the world going to look like tomorrow with 222 million children? So I think that's where we need private sector. We are really appealing to you. We need you to come in where ODA governments no longer can do it alone, and that we can make it all happen if we have sufficient financial resources.
Speaking with my colleagues, I find that there is such a huge appetite across private sector foundations to work differently and to partner differently. And so as a social innovation foundation, it means that we can bring in partners to bring in money and expertise to collaborate, to co-create solutions. And that's truly what corporate foundations are looking for. And that it's really not about being a wallet, but it's about being truly a collaborative partner, a co-equal, coming together to co-create.
I'm a part of this is because I see the impact that Street Child is making about getting access to children in times of crisis. And the only way we're going to achieve that is by the private sector getting engaged, getting their employees engaged. And by giving education to these children, the economy will grow.
Why am I here in the World Economic Forum? Because here we have the private sector, and they are here to see how they can contribute to making the world a better place. And education needs to be on top of that agenda, because unless we educate the 222 million children and youth who are in the most hardship context in the world, how can we achieve any human rights? How can we achieve any sustainable development goals? It all starts with education. And that's why Education Cannot Wait is here in Davos, in Switzerland at the World Economic Forum. We want all of you to join us. Thank you.
I do believe that the education is basically a tool, the only tool to fight poverty. This is the only tool how you can raise critical thinking, how you can raise and educate kids, and then these kids will provide added value to GDP, and then the private companies can benefit from this GDP. That's the only cycle, sustainable cycle we can have.
It will be a better world, a world that I think not much better for those children, but better for us to all live in, if everyone at least acquires the most basic skills of numeracy and literacy. If you can read, write, add up and take away, you have a chance in the world. And if you can't do those things, I don't really see how you do. Street Child's mission is to help as many children as possible acquire those foundational skills and have a chance to make something in their lives and contribute to society.